Okay.
Gareth Edwards, greatest director or just great? I mean, as the second American Godzilla movie.
Well, you know what's sad? That I forgot who the fuck did the first one. Roland Emmerich?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
There was more Godzilla in that movie than there was in the Gareth Edwards movie.
Yeah.
Just, like, nobody cares about your little human characters. They want to see a giant lizard just crush a bunch of buildings and fight another monster. That's all they want. That's all people want to see. Just give it to them.
So what would you have done different? If you were to have if Roland Emmerich came up to you like, listen, okay, we fucked up last time. Everett, how should we make this fucking Godzilla movie?
I would say have the production be the exact same as they were in the 1960s Toho films. So you actually have the model buildings and the model cars and everything and the guys in suits. And I know people are going to roll their eyes at that, but I think the reason why those films looked the way they did back in the 60s is because how they were filmed. Because if you have the camera out this way, you're seeing everything. However, with little GoPros, things like that, if you put them in the model cars, put them at the low end of the buildings, put them inside the buildings, and then film the monsters, fighting and everything like that in slow motion and crushing the buildings, it makes it look a lot larger than it actually is, especially if the suits are very detailed. And when you cut it a certain way, after a while, people are going to be like, how the hell do they do that? That looks so real, and people are going to think it's CGI. And that's the other thing I noticed watching, believe it or not, the tsunami footage from Japan. When I was watching it, my dad looked at me and goes, it looks so fake. Like, it looks like a bunch of little toy cars, but it's real. And so I think when people criticize things for looking, it looks fake. Well, actually, no, that's actually how it looks. That's what it would look like. Roger Corman was, when I met him, he said his inspiration for independent film after the government sued the movie studios in 1948, 1949 on the basis that they were a monopoly. It opened the doors for a lot of independent filmmakers who could now make movies that the studios either would not make or could not make. And it allowed an alternative to what was being presented in the mainstream theaters. Okay. So, but I think now the problem is with independent filmmakers, they're just copying exactly what's in the mainstream theaters, except with half the budget. So not only are you getting an uninspired product, you're getting an inferior product.
So how do you think they could solve it with a minimal budget, and how can they use that to their advantage?
Oh, God. Be a little bit more creative. I think the problem is now with technology being what it is, everybody is more focused on the convenience rather than the creativity. I think when you have obstacles and you have limitations, it forces you to become more creative and look at things a little bit differently, and you kind of have to problem solve. But if it's just push a button and you make a movie, it's great, because that's fine. But now the next guy is going to push that exact same button and make a movie. And after a while, it's kind of like guitar tone. If it's all just right out of the box guitar tone, when you push a button, you're going to have the same plug-in sound over and over and over and over again, as opposed to really kind of figuring out your own sound and your own style. Perfect example would be like Peter Green when he was doing the song Green Manalishi. They actually took his guitar cabs and speakers and everything out under a bridge and recorded them there to get all that huge reverb sound. A little experimentation like that. I think in terms of the script, it's more, they make it easy. They don't challenge. The thing about independent films is they were supposed to kind of challenge the status quo, or they're supposed to offer something different than what the mainstream cinemas are offering. but they're just writing exactly the same type of messages, the same type of scenarios, the same type of results. There's no with the script. It's literally just like, okay, that's successful, so I'm going to copy that. Mm-hmm. There's no personality to it. Mm-hmm. There's no identity. It's just,
so what would you suggest as like a new up and coming filmmaker?
I would suggest that you play what if scenarios. I know everybody, like especially in horror, they go, okay, I'm going to copy John Carpenter. I love John Carpenter. I don't want to be John Carpenter because John Carpenter is John Carpenter. And the problem is now everybody's trying to emulate his style, and they're failing miserably at it. And they're trying to copy George Romero. It's like, okay, we get it. It's a zombie thing, and yeah, okay, we get it. It's a political allegory. Fine, whatever. If that's the problem with zombie movies too. It's like it's either the zombies are breaking out, or there's a zombie outbreak that's happening, or the zombies have already taken over, and some people are trying to survive. There's nothing else. And whether it's a comedy horror or a serious horror, it's the same story. It's the same thing.
So why do you feel you gravitate towards horror rather than any other genre?
Because I think horror really allows you to kind of project messages and metaphors a little bit, I don't want to say easier, but a little bit more creatively than a thriller. Like a thriller or a courtroom drama, it's spoon feeding the audience. This is the bad guy, this is the good guy, that's it. With a horror, you don't really know. You can project any type of political message on top of that, or any type of social message. A perfect example is the Richard Matheson book I Am Legend, where throughout the entire book you're following this guy, and he's ridding the world after this plague happened, and the world's infected with vampirism. And he's ridding the world of vampires, and he's killing them and all this stuff. And he finds out later that he himself is the bad guy, that these people are actually fearful of him, and that he is the legend that they tell their children about to beware of and everything. So now he himself is the monster, he is the bad guy, hence the title I Am Legend. But that's nice. That's a nice little. You can look at it in any type of way. From any type of political or social aspect, you can look at it that way and be like, man, that's a good message for self-reflection. And you're like, oh, let me look at it from a different point of view.
So I find horror is easier to put in a message?
But it's easier to put in your own message. Because when it's a courtroom drama or a thriller, the characters are the characters, and you know the character traits. But when you make them werewolves and vampires and Frankenstein monsters and Godzillas and everything, and it works any way you want to look at it. Godzilla, it's like, okay, it's a message or it's a metaphor for the horrors of atomic war and what the aftermath can be, or just a monster movie, and you just want to see some shit get smashed up. And in either way, it's going to work. Whatever message you want to project on it, it's almost like they're beyond criticism at that point.
So do you find horror is more of a social satire, but in a bigger spectrum? Like you mentioned Godzilla and how he's he's a metaphor for atomic devastation. Do you find horror takes satirical comments to a grander scale? Not so much people individually, but us as a...
I think what it does is it allows... It is a kind of satirical commentary, but I think it's much more hidden. It's not so... It doesn't beat you over the head with it. Like the Wolfman. It's like, okay, for me, that's a metaphor for hormonal changes and growing up and like that. Very few people are going to get that while watching it, but if that's the intention, if that's what you get out of it, that's what you get out of it. I mean, another thing could be like, okay, well, it's a strained father-son relationship, so people can identify with that, or with Dracula, it's it's the mysteries of sex, and it's also the repercussions of that through diseases and whatnot, and contracting diseases that way. Whatever message you want to put on it, that's what it is.
Okay. Do you remember the first horror movie that you've seen that made you introspectively think like that?
There's a couple.
And its impact on you? The first one?
First one.
Yeah.
I would say...
One that stands out the most.
One that really kind of... And I couldn't even... Yeah, I would say Possession. 1981's Possession. That really got me. I think you should never watch that film if you're going through a breakup. That is the highest recommend. that is the best advice I can give. Don't watch it while you're going through a breakup. It'll absolutely destroy you.
Why?
Because I was actually no, I wasn't going through a breakup at that time, but like I was kind of reminiscing while watching the movie of a really bad breakup that I had, and I was just like, oh God, it was just bringing everything back, and you kind of see it from a breakup from a guy's point of view. Which is very rare, I think, in cinema. It's usually a breakup through the girl's point of view. The guy's cheating and she's finding out or whatnot. But it's very rare that he finds that his wife's leaving him and her son for someone else, and he doesn't know who that is, and he can't figure out who it is, and she won't tell him why, and which is exactly what happened with my breakup. I never knew why, so it kind of hit me.
Okay.
I remember taking time off work, and I said, okay, I'm going to film every weekend, because I work weekends, and I said, okay, well, I want all these weekends off in this month. And one of the actresses had to leave at the end of the month, because she was leaving for Nova Scotia, actually. And I said, okay, well, we got to make sure we get all the shots done. We need to make sure we need to get everything. So we crammed so many shots done in that short period of time, because it was now or never. And I think that way it really helped me become more focused, as opposed to being like, okay, so we'll shoot a little bit here, and then when you're free next, we'll shoot this. You need to have a deadline. You need to give yourself that deadline. You need to plan it out. And I think the best way to approach the film is kind of edit it beforehand, before you shoot a frame. Now, I know that sounds weird, but if you're a visual artist, even if you're not, storyboard something. Draw every single shot how you see it, and then put it into an editing software. Edit all those pieces together as if you're editing an actual film. Get a friend or yourself and do the dialogue as a scratch track, and that way you can time all the scenes. You can see where it works. You can rearrange the scenes. What happens if the scene goes here? What happens if I take this scene out? Let's end the film here instead. And you have it all planned out way beforehand, as opposed to spending all this money and all this time with actual footage. Because time is money, and I think if you prepare beforehand and you go in there, editors may not like it because they don't have a lot to say or to work with, but no, I think that's going to be way more efficient, and you're going to get it out more, because so many independent films are stuck in post that it's like, okay, well, once the film's movie, we're still editing it, we're still putting the finished touches on it. Man, like, how long does it take to edit something? Just get it out. You should have planned all that stuff before.
Right. So you mentioned the basics of horror.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate a bit more on that?
Basics of horror. I think, horror is kind of a broad term because there's so many subgenres. You have gothic horror and sci-fi horror, stuff like that. But the basics of horror are just the primal elements to it. whether it's an isolated location or some type of unknown force or an unknown element into a real life situation. Basics of horror, to me, it's like you need some type of memorable monster in the film, or some type of memorable moment in that horror film. It's really hard to put into words, but I think the elements of horror really just go back to like Lovecraft and Poe, and it's just more based on primal feelings rather than overt action.
Right. Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So, how do you find the horror audience in the 30s or 40s compares to the horror audience now?
They're a lot more susceptible and I would say gullible back then as well. I think because a lot of it, they were underexposed to a lot of things of that nature. In Frankenstein 1931, nobody really saw somebody throw a little girl into a lake before, but in the 1930s, right at the height of the Great Depression, I mean, I don't think people were ready for that. But I think after a while, I think they kind of just became, okay, well, that's just kind of cliche. I think mostly because of the budgets got cut. I mean, if you look at the thing like the Godzilla movie, back in like the original one, the Godzilla and even Godzilla Raids Again, they were serious films. They were really well made, and they're dead serious, and everybody played them seriously. But then later on in the 60s and 70s, you had, Godzilla dancing, and, it became more kid-oriented because...
much like Freddy Krueger.
Much like Freddy Krueger. And they became sort of parody. And I remember Lon Chaney Jr. saying a quote that what killed the monsters was Abbott and Costello, because they made buffoons out of them.
So do you find for horror to get back to its roots now, it needs to be taken a more serious tone?
Yes. It needs to... I think the problem is now it's either not taken seriously enough or it's overcompensated with comedy.
Not taken seriously by...
the characters. And it's not taken seriously by the filmmakers. A lot of them just kind of do it because it's an easy sell and it's a quick buck, which is fine. But I think it really needs to get back to its roots. And it's like, no, I want to make this because I want to make it this way. And you have to develop that. You have to go in 100%. Otherwise, it shows through the material.
In the films that you have done,
Yeah.
what seems to, if you were to watch them from the audience's perspective,
Yeah.
how would you feel that you would describe their style?
Different. Not so much. I feel that my style is very different than most other independent filmmakers and most other independent horror filmmakers because it relies on the what if question. What if the character from this movie was put into this scenario and in this plot? What if this character from this movie met this character? And I just write them based on that. There's of course all these references to films I'm inspired by, of course, but I think with me, I try and get a message across utilizing these characters, and I kind of utilize these characters kind of like chess pieces, and be like, hey, this is the message I want to deliver. Who would be a good character? And I'll go through my movie collection and be like, Vincent Price in Witchfinder General. I like him. I want to put him into the gritty 1980s New York 42nd Street thing. What would that be like? What would a guy who is burning witches and like in Massachusetts? How would that character translate into a 1980s setting or a 1970s setting, set in like gritty New York. And you know, what would Robert Ginty in The Exterminator, what would his character be like if he met Joe Spinell's character in Maniac? And kind of play them off each other. Little things like that.
Why aren't horror audiences scared now with new movies?
I think because now horror audiences really aren't scared from newer films, they're startled. And there's a big difference between being shocked and being scared. A loud sound is going to scare anybody. You know, you could be sitting watching TV, and if a loud bang goes off in the kitchen or something smashes, you're startled. So I think the problem now is people are relying on jumps. Like, oh man, you see the audience jump? Yeah, of course they jumped. It's loud. It's loud. It's startling. That's not being scared. Being scared is, you know, biting your fingernails and peeing your pants and, you know, just kind of being like, my God, what's going to happen? And being scared that way. And I think the reason why a lot of horror audiences aren't scared anymore is because the genre has been parodied so much. We've had and that to me is such a cop-out when one does that. It's like you have all this money and all this effects budget, you have the quality actors, and you could make a decent werewolf movie. And you make it a comedy. Why? And I think that just comes off as like you don't want to be criticized for. You're almost embarrassed of the genre horror, so you're like, oh, well, let's just make it a comedy, so that way if it does come off as cheesy, we can just say, well, it's meant to be that way.
Now the straight horror movies that are not parodies, that are intentionally made to frighten a modern audience.
Yeah.
Why aren't they good? Why aren't they quality?
You know, for the newer films now, there's nothing personal to them. It's just there's. I mean, perfect example would be the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It wasn't just about, you know, a cannibalistic family. It had all these political overtones that kind of flew over people's heads while watching it. And it was so different. And so, what the hell's going on? Because I think the problem now, if you fast forward years later and you watch Texas Chainsaw 3D, it's filmed totally differently. The first one has its own style that I've never seen replicated again. You have, you know, snap zooms. Why is there a snap zoom? Why is there a tracking shot? Why is it edited this way? That shot's out of focus. Why did they keep it in? And it was so haphazard, but it just became, it worked for that film, and it became its own thing. It has never been duplicated. Fast forward years later, you see Texas Chainsaw 3D, you have him throwing the chainsaw, and it's just these incredibly crisp images, and it's just it's lit well, and it's so well done that there's no primal reaction to it because it's filmed like a Hollywood film, and right away it doesn't take the audience out of reality. I think the best horror films take the audience completely out of reality, whether it's putting the film in black and white, whether it's taking the sound out of the film, whether it's filmed a certain way or edited a certain way, the music's done a certain way. But if it's exactly like a Hollywood film, then everyone just goes, oh, okay, I know what to expect. And they're not scared by it because they know it's not real.
Now, what would you say to filmmakers saying that I want to make a horror movie, but I just don't have the money? Or use that as a crutch?
I would say change your script. Anybody can make a horror movie with any type of budget. It's the type of horror movie you want to make. That's the budget's going to dictate that. If you want to do a giant monster movie and you're wanting to have buildings smash and everything like this, but you have $20, ain't gonna get it done. But if you have, if you watch like an older Twilight Zone episode and things are in a secluded area, It's like, okay, so we don't have to move the camera around to different locations, so we'll just keep it all in one singular location. If we cut down on the number of characters, how do we get around the showing the monster? Okay, well, maybe we can watch some Val Lewton films and see how he did it this way. Maybe it's just the shadow that we see. Maybe we just see the hand. Maybe we just see this. Even Howard Hawks' version of The Thing, where you just kind of saw bits and pieces of it, as opposed to the entire grand scale. And you build it that way.
Editing?
Yeah.
Like you shoot and edit a lot of your stuff. Do you find that you're ever do you take on too much?
Yeah. Yeah.
I never elaborate on that.
Yeah, sure. No, I think you don't want to spread yourself too thin. I know a lot of independent filmmakers want to do everything. They want to edit their own stuff. They want to direct, write, produce, score, costume design, art direction. They want to do everything. But I think spreading yourself too thin, one department is going to suffer. And whether that's the script, whether that's direction, whether that's editing, something's going to suffer. Something's got to give. Because there's no way, I don't care who you are, that you're going to be perfect in every little thing. There's a reason why directors give it to other people. I think the worst thing you can do as a director is not have somebody edit your film. I mean, I've done my own edits sometimes, but then I look back on it and go, damn, I don't want to lose that shot, because every shot that you look at has a history to it. You know how long it took to set up, you know how much money put into that, you know how long it took to with the actors. An editor, that's totally separate. They're looking at it from a totally objective point of view, going, okay, that doesn't work. And you're not, and when you bring it back, you go, you know what? Yeah, it was a good call. It doesn't work. But the best thing a director can do for an editor is just communicate what they want out of the movie. And if there's tons of filler in it, and if there's tons of stuff that really doesn't matter, man, you should have prepared. You should have knew all that beforehand. Because now you just wasted all that money and all that time.
What's the first thing that you and your recommend other people do when they're having trouble, like just getting off the ground? I want to make a horror movie. What's the first thing I should do?
Write the ending.
Could you?
Write the ending first. Is my recommendation, because that's going to be your payoff. How am I going to end this? And then just write it as almost like a puzzle, where you're like, hey, this scene would be really cool, and just write scenes out. I think now it's just everybody's trying to write from first scene all the way to the last scene. It's better to, even the sticky notes, and just write, okay, what happens in this scene? What happens in this scene? And then just maneuver them around, take some out. Edit your film beforehand, and then take those sticky notes and be like, okay, now take it to a storyboard artist or draw them yourself, and that way you put all those drawings into an editing suite. You can time the movie, and that's where you learn how, okay, where's the musical cue going to be here? Where's the singer going to be? Where's the payoff going to be? This scene is dragging on for too long. That doesn't work. Get rid of it. This scene, let's see what it would be like at the end of the movie. What scene would be here?
It's a good experiment.
Good, very good experiment, and guess what? It doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't cost you a dime. And it's a great, especially if you wrap that up as an actual movie that you can, or a rough draft that you can present to investors and say, this is my movie, beginning, middle, end of story. All I need is money to put it to camera. That's it. Yeah, I think being a musician or a visual artist or doing something else other than being a director is so beneficial, because it allows you to look at a film and you can literally hear the music in your head as you're filming. Like, okay, this is music that's going behind it, and that way you can kind of time the scene to it. Even write the music before you even shoot a scene. I know Once Upon a Time in the West, Ennio Morricone did the music before Sergio Leone shot the thing, and he timed everything to the music. Now it's all going to be done in post, but do experiment that way and be like, okay, and even as a visual artist, you design the costumes, you design how it's going to look, you storyboard everything, be like, hey, I want to get this shot done this way, how can it look this way? You design the poster, and you're going to be offering something much more than just saying, cut, action, take it a little bit slower, take it a little bit faster. Your contribution is going to be much more personal.
Right. What else do you do when you're writing storyboarding to help that creativity come?
Listen to music. As I'm drawing, I'm listening to soundtracks and listening to just stuff I've done, records I have, and just be like, hey. And I have an idea of what type of score I want, because a score can kind of make or break a movie. I kind of have an idea of what type of score I want before I start to storyboard, or as I'm storyboarding. If I'm doing like, if I'm doing, it really kind of depends on the project, but I think sometimes just improvising, listening to some like really crazy jazz scores over top of horror thing. A horror film or monster movie, it's gonna give you a different impression than if you're listening to a classical piece or a synthesizer piece or a rock piece. You're gonna get a different flow to it.
Okay, and because we're almost out of time now, what at the end of the day, what would be your ideal goal as a director?
It's tough to say, but really what I want to do is, there's tons of like box sets that are coming out now from like video companies. My goal as a director is, whether it happens when I'm alive or when I'm dead, is to actually have a huge box set of my work that a fan can go and buy and have, just like I've done it with Roger Corman, Herschel and Lewis, Edward D. Jr., all those guys. I can get their box sets and look through it and kind of see their work and kind of reflect on their work, especially if it includes books and the making of and all these featurettes, and even if it includes some of their music from the movies. It's just a complete package.
So what effect would you like to leave with them?
That I did it my way, and now I want you to do it your way.